Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the first ever quarterly HCM meeting. I'm excited that we're having this training. I know it's a little bit early in the morning, so I appreciate everyone joining this early. It's hard to get a block of time that works for all of us here at DFA together. So this was the best time we could find. But again, thank you all for joining. I see there's 125 folks on already. Please engage with the team as they go through today. Use the Q&A to ask questions. You have two groups of experts here. You have the central payroll group, and then you have the share support team on the HCM side. These are the folks that keep the system, keep the state moving forward, both from a systematic perspective and a technical management processing perspective. We're very excited to start these quarterly meetings with you all, and please engage with them. And to the teams that are presenting, Audrey Beck's team, Audrey Liddy's team, thank you all for working together and collaborating to put this training together. I think this is a huge step forward for the state. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Audrey Liddy, and she'll be your first presenter today. So thank you all.
Right. Good morning, everyone. We have a few announcements that we'll go over, and I will talk through mine first. So Alex, next slide, please. All right. The first thing is starting January 1st, 2025, there is a new FLSA threshold. The threshold did go up July 1st of this year, and it's going up again January 1st. So we want you all to be prepared for that. The new weekly salary threshold is 1,128, which for a full-time FTE comes out to $28.20 per hour. The computer employees remain the same at $27.63 per hour. Next slide, please. All right, so we have a query for you to run. It is the one listed there, NMS HR FLSA Threshold 2025. And I want to walk you through a few examples of what you would see on that query. So the first employee there earns less than the $28.20 per hour and is currently in an FLSA status of administrative and in a comp time work group. So something on this employee needs to change. Either the hourly rate needs to go up above that threshold, or this employee needs to be put into a non-exempt work group and non-exempt FLSA status. The second employee on there is a computer employee, so they have a slightly different threshold. Regardless, they're not meeting that threshold. This employee is, however, in an OT work group, so they are getting that overtime calculation, but they are classified as a computer employee and should not be because they are not FLSA exempt. The third employee is similar to the first in that they are under that threshold and they are in a CT work group. However, they are classified with an FLSA status of non-exempt. So in this case, the work group looks incorrect. They should be put in that OT work group so that if they do work over that 40 hours in the work week, they do accrue a time and a half. All right, so if there are any questions on that as you run that query and need to know why someone's on there, please submit a help desk ticket to us. We can assist with that, answer questions. We're not enforcing this. This is something between you and your SAL plan administrators. We're putting the information out there so that you're aware, so that your agency can make the decisions as to how these employees need to be classified. Okay, so you do need to determine if the employee's pay needs to change, if the FLSA status needs to be changed, and or the work group needs to be changed on these employees. If you do have any questions pertaining to how they should be classified, please work with your SAL plan administrator. And again, if you need any assistance in the system with making these changes and you're unsure what to do, you can contact us via the help desk. The email address listed there, enterprise support desk at doit.nm.gov, is the best way to reach us. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a change coming soon. We don't have an exact date for it yet, but that will be communicated when that change is going to production. And that is we will be masking Social Security numbers throughout HCM. As you all know, there are a lot of security issues and safety issues for employees in the PII that we have to protect for our employees. So in most cases throughout the system, the employees' Social Security number and dependent Social Security numbers will be masked with only the last 4 digits of the Social Security number showing. When you do go in to enter a new employee, you will be able to see the full number. So as you're typing it in, you will see the full number. Please, please validate that it is correct before you save that transaction. That's really important. We've had way too many instances of fat fingering of Social Security numbers where there's 1 digit off and it causes problems for payroll and for us to assist payroll in making those corrections. So before you save that transaction, double check that that Social Security number is correct. Once you save that, it will get masked. So you will not be able to go back in and see the full Social Security number. If for some business purpose you do need to see that full Social Security number, please contact Central Payroll Bureau and they can assist with that. All right, next slide, please. All right, and we have a new security form. So you all are most likely very familiar with the security form that we have for HCM right now. We have a new form effective today, and the form is available on our website. And if it's not already on the DFA website, it will also be there as well. Make it a part of your business process to submit a form for new hires, transfers, including promotions if the job duties are changing, and terminations if the employee has more than self-service access. So talking a little bit more about that, if you're promoting someone within your own HR department, they already have all the HR roles that they need and they don't need any more, then you don't need to submit a security form for that change. However, if they're moving from your HR department and they have those HR roles and they're moving to a finance job that would require different roles, please submit that form to update their security. And also with terminations, using the same situation, if you have someone in your HR department who has those HR roles, if they are terminating, go ahead and submit that termination form so that we can remove those roles sooner rather than later. When the termination is entered into job data, there is a process that runs that will go and remove those roles from those employees. But it's not until you enter the termination into the system. So if it's a case where you're not going to be entering that termination immediately, but that person has a significant amount of roles in the system, then please submit that form to us or to the security team. Okay, next, we will no longer be auto-assigning the time approver role to an employee listed as a direct report or an additional approver. So right now, if someone is a reports to in the system, or if they're listed as an additional approver, they are automatically assigned the time approver role. We found that gets messy and it's not always accurate. And there are a lot of people who have that role who aren't using it. So we want to clean up the system a bit. If a manager or supervisor needs to approve time for employees, you must submit a security form and select the time approver role under the non-HR section of the form. This only applies going forward. So we're not going to remove this role from people who currently have it if they don't have the form. But we will be cleaning up employees who currently have the role but haven't been approving any time. So that's a cleanup that we will be starting soon. And then also we wanted to talk a little bit about the approval and process issue. We have been getting some tickets on this recently, and Jim will talk a little bit more about this in a minute. But if a manager does not have the approval role before their employees submit time, or if the manager has locked themselves out of HCM and the employees report time while the manager is locked out, the manager will not be able to approve time and will get a message of approval in process. The best way to deal with this is for HR or a different manager to approve this time on behalf of the manager who sees this message. So Generally, HR are the ones who are going to have access to the whole agency. So in this scenario where a manager didn't either wasn't listed as an additional approver, didn't have the role, or they got themselves locked out of the system while the employee reported time and they see this message, generally that should go to HR for approval. Or if there is another manager up the line who also has the ability to approve those employees, then that would be the best way forward. All right, so finally, we want to show you the new security form. So Alex, if you could either click on the document or link, bring that up. Thank you. All right, so the top part of the form is very similar to the way that it is now, no big changes. We do have the HR staff radio button there. It does default to no. And so if you are requesting roles for someone who will be performing HR duties, then you do need to change that to yes and use that top section of the form related to HR personnel, where the banner says HR personnel. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. If you're only requesting self-service access for the employee, so this is an employee who doesn't need any additional security roles in the system, go ahead and check that red box for basic self-service employee. That's all you need to do. That along with the top part of the form, and then signing at the bottom is the only thing you need to do. You don't need to select any other roles. If you're only performing a name change, then you will check the name change only box. And the same roles will be assigned under the new operator ID. And then we have our two sections down below. So we have that for HR personnel, people who need the HR roles, and then we have that for non-HR personnel. And under the HR personnel drop-down boxes, it's very similar to before. We have streamlined it a little bit and cleaned it up a little bit, and hopefully made it a little bit easier to fill out. Namely, where with the time admin roles, we have the agency time admin and the view only, where you can only select one of those. The next three roles are the update roles, and those ones do require training. In order to request those roles, the training has to be completed first, and once you can show that you've completed that training, then you can request access to those roles. And then finally, we have our restricted roles, which are the advice print and the direct deposit update. Those roles you do have to go through central payroll for approval for those roles. And you can email them for that approval. And if they give that approval, then request that through the share security team. Finally, we have the non-HR personnel. That's going to be like your query viewer, the ability to set up task profile IDs. And then also for those managers and supervisors who are going to be approving time, we have that time approver role or a timekeeper role if someone at your agency will be the designated person for entering time on behalf of other employees. And then at the bottom, we also have the signature line, date, and then we do have a box right above that for entering additional information. So if, for example, you're hiring on a new HR person, it's a new position, and that HR person needs to be able to approve the whole agency, you can put a note in there that that person needs to be an agency-wide approver, and then we will know that to add that position to the list of agency-wide approvers for your agency. Or if there are other notes that you need to put in there, or maybe questions that you have, please do send these forms to the Share Security email address that's listed there at the bottom of the form. And I believe that's all I have. So does anyone have any questions on any of that?
There are a couple of questions, Audrey. So Stacy is asking when we have to send a termination form to ERISA for benefits, do you know if ERISA will accept the form with just the last four of the Social Security number?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm sure they can. I will reach out to ERISA and ask that.
Okay, and then Heather Clark is asking, masking the Social Security would limit agencies' ability to use the NMS statewide employee search key since the employee ID option has been removed. Do you know if that has been researched?
So it won't limit your ability to use that because that search is by Social Security number. So in order to use that search, you would have to know the employee's full Social Security number, which is what you should have on hiring documentation. So using that hiring documentation, you would plug that Social Security number into the statewide search, and it will pull up to see if there is an employee who already matches, if that Social Security number is already in under an existing employee ID. So that wouldn't change.
And they are saying that this would also be in relation to para. I do know that para will allow just the last four of the Social Security number needed. If they need the entire Social Security number, para will more than likely reach out to payroll to get that information. So with para, it should not be an issue. Heather saying this may be a SPO specific issue. I think that Audrey has assured you that you should still be able to search. Rebecca is saying masking the Social Security number will limit us from confirming the information on the federal student loan forgiveness forms and employment verifications. Again, that should not be the case because if you're able to search for the Social Security number, you should be able to use the employee ID number to confirm any of that information.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey.
I'm kind of looking through these. If you mask it in recruitment, we can't run it in the statewide, and that's how we double check to see if they have been with another agency. Natasha, I do believe you can do a search for Social Security number. I do them all of the time, and I do not have access to recruitment. So if you do the search in HCM, even if they are a terminated employee, you will be able to see if they have any history in HCM.
If I can add to that, again, you would use the statewide employee search and you would have that information on your hiring documentation.
And
Yeah,
on the personnel file or the I-9, you can use that. Jessica's saying that you can use that to confirm as well. No. DFA is not going to give you a full Social Security number in order to do a statewide search. You should have that information if you need it on your hiring documents or information that the employee has provided. DFA is not going to be answering and fielding calls about Social Security numbers. That's the purpose of masking them, is that we are not wanting that information to be out there. It is a requirement that we keep this information safe, and you should be able to have documentation from the employee. If you're doing a pre-offer or a pre-hire, you may want to change your paperwork so that when they come in for the interview, they provide that information to you. You know, there are other mechanisms to get an employee Social Security number directly from the employee that you should be able to use. Heather, yes, you can contact us to discuss if you would like to. It does appear as though you have some other questions. So instead of taking up time here, we will discuss with you. Amy is asking, if you're a supervisor, can you approve your direct reports timesheets? And can you also see other employees' timesheets?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
If you're a supervisor and can approve your direct reports timesheets, can you also see other employees' timesheets?
No. So you have to, in order, so yes, this gets a little tricky. In some agencies, yes, the answer is yes. In some agencies, the answer is no. So we have instituted in some agencies additional timesheet security, which restricts the supervisor or manager's ability to see employees who they only approve. So if they have the ability to approve that employee, they're listed as an additional approver, or they're listed as a reports to, or they're an agency-wide approver, then they will be able to see those employees' timesheets. But if they're not at an agency where we haven't instituted that security yet, then they will be able to see everyone's timesheet. They will not be able to approve everyone. So we have been working with agencies to institute that security, but it is a fairly slow process and it requires a lot of cleanup because for many agencies, those reports to the additional approvers are not clean, and those need to be cleaned up, and everyone needs to be sure that the right approvals are in the right structure is in place before we can turn that on. Does that answer the question?
I believe it does. Thank you. I do have one thing that I would like to add to what Audrey Liddy said about the forms change.
Move on.
I'm sorry. When you are changing a name in HCM, you need to ensure that that name has been changed with Social Security, because if you change the name with Social in HCM and the employee has not made the change to Social Security, they are going to come up on our TENS matching as a mismatch. And you will get the email from Central Payroll that says that this information does not match. You will need to get the Social Security and Social Security card to verify the name and match the name in HCM to what is on the Social Security card. So if an employee brings you in a marriage license or a divorce decree and asks to have their name changed, you will need to ask to see the new Social Security card reflecting that name change before you make the change in HCM. Thank you.
And I'd like to add to that if the employee requests the name change through self-service or the marital status change, the same thing applies. That for the name change, you do need to see that Social Security printout that they will give you at the office there, or the actual marriage or divorce decree before you can approve that in the system.
Thank you.
All right, and I think Jim is the next. I think he was having troubles getting in, but he's in now, so he may need to be added as a panelist before he can start presenting.
Okay, let me get him. I am not seeing him. Oh.
Jim, can you raise your hand, please?
I got it.
Those are all really great questions, everyone. Thank you for providing us with your insights. You know, this is the whole purpose of this, is so that we can get feedback from the agencies, because a lot of times you see things or know things that we may have not have considered. So thank you all for your questions. You know, it's really important for us to extend our knowledge, and that's one of the ways that we do this.
right. Was Jim able to get?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I don't know what was going on my end. Okay, so I'm going to cover a couple of things regarding additional approvers, starting out with some tips. We have an existing query, NMSTL active EE reports to BU. Some of you may have used it before, but we have updated this query to make it more usable and have more clear and more accurate information. The biggest thing is that it will give you all your active employees in your agency, and it will show the manager who the employee reports to, and then it will list all of the additional approvers. And the nice thing about this report is that we now have it showing blanks if the reports to manager position is vacant, or if the additional approver position they have assigned on their additional approver screen. If it's blank, that means that position is vacant. The next thing I wanted to go over was to give you a little more explanation about the effective date on the additional approver, what that means with regard to access to the approvals. When you update the additional approver information, the manager who you've entered will not be able to approve any time until after that approval page has been submitted and saved. But their approvals are not retroactive. What that means is that only from that point where the record is saved and then going forward will the manager be able to approve time. So they won't become part of the approval workflow. They may see the time on the timesheet, but they'll see down below that the status says approval in process. Oh, and then I missed the first part of Audrey. You may have mentioned about the manager lockout. I just wanted to mention that. So to be clear, during the time that the manager's locked out, if time is entered during that time period, then that manager will not be able to approve that time. Only after the lockout has been cleared and time from that point forward will be able to be approved. I hope that's clear. All right, on the next slide, we have some fixes coming down the road in the next couple of weeks with additional approvers. The first thing is we noticed that there is a problem regarding employees who transfer to other agencies. And what happens is if an employee moves to another agency and you don't update their additional approver information, then the manager in the old agency can still see their time and can approve that time. So we've got that fixed, and it's in the testing process right now. So what will happen is we'll have a nightly process that will clean up existing data. But if you happen to transfer someone during the day and then go immediately into their additional approver screen, you won't be able to save it unless you remove positions that belong to managers at the old agencies. I hope that makes sense. And what will happen with the nightly process is every night when it finds these discrepancies, it's going to insert a new effective dated row, and it will delete those rows where the business unit for the approver does not match the business unit for the employee. Couple of reminders. If you run into situations where you can't see the timesheet for a new employee, that probably means 9 times out of 10, that means that you've not set up their time reporter data. And so neither the manager nor the employee will be able to see their timesheet either on manager self-service or employee self-service. And one last item is if you have a time administrator who needs to approve time for the whole agency, you can grant that access. I mean, you can request that access, but you need to submit the request on the security form. And Audrey, I don't know if you covered this already, but I think we said we want them to put that thing in the block at the bottom, I think. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We did cover that.
Yeah. So you only have two options with this, really. Either you grant everybody in the agency, I'm sorry, either you grant the approver the ability to approve anybody's time in your agency, or if it has to be limited, you have to set the approvals up in the additional approver screen for each employee. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jim. We do have a couple of questions. We have anonymous attendee is asking, is there a way to clean up approvers so sometime approvers don't have access to the entire agency? So it sounds like somebody may have switched positions but still has access to agency-wide as opposed to just their direct reports. Is that part of the cleanup?
No, it's not. That's something, Audrey, help me out here. It sounds like this is going to have to be a security form submission to change their security, right?
Yeah, I think this comes down to either that employee is listed as an additional approver on too many people and shouldn't be, or they possibly their position is listed as an agency-wide approver, and that would give them access to approve everyone's timesheet. That's probably one that you should submit a help desk ticket on, and we can take a look to see what the issue might be. You can start though by running that query that Jim listed earlier to show.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be a good
Yeah,
place to start. That if you run that query and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, you can then filter on that the column for additional approvers, and then you can see everybody that person has the ability to approve.
and then if it's still not clear, go ahead and submit a ticket to us.
And Annette, I'm going to ask you to submit your question to Dwayne via email so that he can answer directly. This sounds like it's something that is agency specific. So I'm going to just defer that question. If you would please send it directly to Dwayne and let him answer it for you instead of in this forum. Kieran is asking, on the query for reports, can the query be updated to add a column for department ID as out agency? We have over 900 FTE. Oh, as our agency has over 900 FTE.
Yes, I can add that. That's easy. I'll add it today.
All right, so that concludes the questions we have for this section.
Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. So I'm going to talk briefly about a few tips and tricks on questions and tickets we see routinely. So I guess first, can you hear me? Can I just have a thumbs up from someone on the panel? Okay, cool. So something we get pretty frequently, a question and a ticket, is managers or HR not wanting to see the timesheets of terminated employees. So usually when they go into the center time on fluid time and labor, they'll click that get employees button. And either it'll spin and spin and spin if you're a larger agency, or once it does load, you'll see a list of 100 employees or more because it pulls them the active employees as well as terminated employees. So you can set a filter. So if you hit that filter button in the screenshot, So the time reporter group, if you only want to see the active employees, you'll enter the first 3 digits of your agency. So for DFA, for the example, it's 341. Then you'll enter the @ then the 0. And then once you hit done, it'll pull in all active employees at your agency. But you can also go further. If you know the employee ID, you can enter the employee ID there. Just pull up the timesheet of one employee. Otherwise, if you want to pull up timesheets for employees at a certain department, that's like 4th from the bottom, you'll enter that department number. And you'll see all the timesheets for the employees that are in those departments. Yeah, thank you, Alex. So if you want to have that filter set consistently, and you don't want to enter that active time reporter group, so that 341 @ 0 every single time, PeopleSoft has this ability where you can go in and save that preference, so you don't have to key enter that every time. So navigation, oh, sorry, Alex, can you go back? Yeah, so that navigation's there at the bottom in gold. You follow that navigation and it'll bring you to this page, and it has all the same filter options as we saw in the previous slide for the filters. So we recommend, if you only want to see the active employees, to enter that active time reporter group for your agency. And if there's anything else, you can enter this here as well. Just one thing to keep in mind, if you want to see a timesheet for a terminated employee, you'll have to either here, if you want to remove that altogether, come back to this page and remove it from this. Or if it's just a one-time thing, when you hit the filter, it's going to default there. You can just select that field and clear it out and then hit done, and then it'll pull all the rest of the employees. A couple of things to keep in mind on this page. So if you or the manager transfers to another agency, you're going to need to come back to this page and update that time reporter group to your new agency. Otherwise, when you go in to search for a timesheet, you're not going to see any employees. So this is a good, I guess, first step in troubleshooting. So if you have a manager coming to you that may have just transferred from another agency and they're saying that they can't see any of their employees' timesheets, just have them just double check this page, see if they don't have anything here that say that could prevent them from seeing those. And if they're still having difficulties, of course, you can submit a help desk ticket to us. Let's see, are there any questions on this before I move on? I think there is. Yeah, there is a job aid. I can send that out to you, Heather, or it's on our Share Info Center as well. It's under our job aid section. I think it's under like the manager self-service section. But yeah, I can send that to you.
Sorry, I just want to add. Sorry, I just want to add that if you don't know how to get to the Share Info Center, there is a link on the sign-in page to that, and so you can get all of our job aids via that link.
Great, thank you, Audrey. Anything else? Alrighty. So the next slide, please. Another thing that we get pretty routinely are new hires that have forgot their password. So in the haze of starting a new job, they've logged in, but then they forgot their password and can't go in to enter their time or view their paycheck or anything like that. And so when they try to go in, they'll try to do the forgot my password function, but because they haven't set it up, it's not going to work. So the navigation to that is there also in gold at the bottom. So when you have a new employee, I'd probably just urge you to have them set this up right away, so they don't have to submit a help desk ticket to unlock. But it's under the My System profile, and then when they come to this page, we'll do the change or set up forgotten password. And if you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so they'll get this prompt to select a question. That drop down has the list of all your usual security questions for forgot your password. So what's your mother's maiden name? What street did you grow up on? Things of that nature. So you'll select from the drop down, then you'll enter your response. It's not case sensitive, so you don't have to worry about entering caps or remembering that you entered caps. So just make sure your answer's something you're going to remember. Then you'll hit OK. And then if you'll go to the next slide, please. So now once they have that set up, now if they use the forgot their password, they'll enter the answer to their security question, and then their temporary password will get emailed to them. And Vanessa's going to touch on this in a little bit as well. Just make sure that on the personal data page that they're set up with their business email, because if they don't have that listed, then they're not going to get the email, and this isn't going to work. So it's just really important to make sure that that's up to date, and the correct emails on that page. Any questions on this one?
I'm not seeing any.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, everyone. And yeah, if you have any questions or issues, just submit a help desk ticket or send them our way. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I guess it's my turn. I wanted to go ahead and just touch on a few recruiting reminders. This may not be new information for some of you, as we did have a recruiting touch point with some of you, but just as a reminder, the state personnel has been working on implementing changes to their minimum quals. The min qual itself is not changing. However, the min qual is absorbing the substitution language. So they have done this for approximately 400 plus job titles. So it's not everyone at this, it's not all of them at this point, but we will be implementing that change inside of Share Recruiting. And what we're asking is there's a job posting freeze, so we can make these changes and the data doesn't get muddied up out there. We're asking you to not create or approve any new or draft postings between 11/8 and 11/12. The other thing that we'd like to remind as some of the updates that we're making is we are removing the substitution table from these 400 plus job titles. So it will no longer default. So you want to go ahead and remember to delete the job posting description when you're creating your job postings. So yeah, pretty easy, pretty simple, because you don't want the posting section to appear and it be blank. So just a few reminders there. Any questions? There's one.
There is one, and Jessica's asking, what about instances where an employee does not have a business email address? Jessica, I do believe that is a requirement for HCM access. So they would not have any access to HCM if they do not have a business email address. Somebody with the share team can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually going to touch on that. If there's no questions regarding the recruiting job posting, we can go ahead and pop into there and I can just move right on. Yes, so there are instances, and we've been seeing it. We've done a huge cleanup. The share team has been working on this for a couple of months now, where we have been trying to clean up the emails inside of personal data. Again, as Mikhail said, this affects forgot your password. It affects ELM enrollments. It affects recruitment if they get, if they apply through the careers tile. If the email is not correct, they're not going to get that confirmation that they applied for that job. So it's very important that we add, you don't need, we're not asking you to delete, or what we're asking you to do is alter and add the business email with the domain change. And this affects, especially, bringing up the domain change, it's now agency.nm.gov. So if someone moves from SPO to DFA, that spo.nm.gov is no longer valid. They need the dfa.nm.gov. So we're seeing this more with transfers, especially. So if you can make sure to update that agency name and make sure it is the preferred email address. Now, as for the ability to access share, the email address is not required to be business, but we are requiring it to be business. There's nothing that inhibits them from getting share access, but they won't necessarily get all of the emails and information. And we're actually in the process of making strides to where it will be at some point in the near future. It will halt you from having, without a business email, it will halt your employees from having access to share. That's currently not a standard at this is a standard at this time, but it is not it doesn't halt you from having access, or your employees. But we do want to hold this standard, and we are holding it pretty firm. Many of you may have gotten contacted by Dwayne and asked for these to be updated. So any questions on this? Alrighty. Just one other last reminder, continuous postings in Share Recruiting. They cannot be more than 30 days unless you've obtained approval from the State Personnel Office. You can contact Sheila Zamora there. She will be happy to get you the proper approvals that are needed. They are changing those. If they do catch them without the approval, they will be, bringing them back down to that 30-day threshold. So again, continuous postings, 30 days unless otherwise approved by the State Personnel Office. And that's all I have, everyone. Any questions on anything I just talked about?
There is a
Fabulous.
question
Oh.
from an anonymous attendee.
Mhm.
Does Share have a query where you could verify that the employees have their business's email listed, set up as preferred in personal data, so we can assist with cleanup on our ends?
Oh, I do not believe there is a query, but that's a fabulous idea. Let me get with the team and
Vanessa, we do have.
Yeah,
do we
We
have one?
do.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Jump right in there. Thank you.
And they can either contact me. I can't see everybody on my screen, but whoever that was, you can submit a help desk ticket. We can give you the queries that are available out there.
Thank you.
Dwayne, I think the only thing that may be missing from that query is the preferred. It may have it on there. I don't recall, but I know, like you said, there is a query that has the email addresses.
Indeed.
So we may want to just check that first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Can you,
Alrighty.
and they're asking if you can add the query here. I think because it's an anonymous attendee, they would prefer to stay anonymous. So, or if you can potentially post it somewhere where people would have access to those queries or know what those queries are.
So can I just give a quick tip? And I think one of these sessions will probably do some back to basics type things in the system. You can search for queries using keywords. So we try when we do name those queries. I know there's a ton of them. We have queries for everything pretty much in the system. Way too many queries. And so use keywords. You can use a wildcard. So when you go into the query viewer, put in a %, put in a keyword, and then you can follow it by another % if you want. That second one isn't always necessary, but it can help with your search. That'll give you a list of queries that have that keyword in the name of the query. You can also search by description. So description isn't always as great of a search tool because it's not always filled out and it may not always be accurate. But it is also another possibility. So you can change, there's a drop-down box on the query viewer, how you search, but use that keyword search. And remember, you just have to put in that wildcard of the % in order to pull up queries. So if you were to put %email, you would probably pull that query up or more. Because like I said, we have multiples of many queries. And so one of our projects is actually doing some cleanup at some point and better labeling those queries. So sorry to go off tangent, but that should help you.
That's perfectly okay. Katrina did put into the chat the NMS _email _addresses _by_BU. So that may be a helpful query for you to utilize. Also, the presentation that we are doing is being recorded and it will be posted on the Central Payroll Bureau's website for access to anybody. There was also another query that was posted, which is ERE_PERS data_EE_email. So your peers are giving you some help. Please utilize that information. All right. Thank you, share team. Go
I
ahead.
also have a Denise Gonzalez with her hand up asking a question. Go ahead, Denise. You're unmuted.
Denise, can you ask your question?
I'm not sure. There.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So David Dominguez is saying that the share security does require a state email address. And the slides for today will be sent out after we have concluded this presentation. So yes, and they will also be posted on the Central Payroll Bureau's website. So they will be available to everyone once this has concluded.
And I'd like to just throw in one more thing before we move on to Central Payroll, and that's that we will be sending out some information soon about 2 new TRCs that will be available to all agencies. And it will be used for the Roswell flooding, so work done for Roswell flooding. But these TRCs are ones that we may reuse in the future for other things. They will be used just like regular hours, or they are just like regular hours. There's one for reg hours, and then there's one for holiday worked. So just keep an eye out for that. If your agency is one of those ones that is assisting with the Roswell flooding, then this will be especially important to you. And we will be sending that information out soon.
Thank you, Audrey. I'd like to thank the share team. This is the first collaborative effort that we have done with a training session with both the share team and Central Payroll. And so I want to thank them for participating. Excellent job. If there are no additional questions for the share team, we will go ahead and move on to the Central Payroll Bureau.
Hey, Audrey Beck, can I make just one quick comment?
Certainly.
Oh, excellent. Thanks so much. Whenever a help desk ticket is submitted, please, 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 if you're submitting it for yourself, please include your employee ID number. And if you're submitting it on behalf of one of your employees or a colleague, again, please submit or include, I should say, the employee ID number. Some of us have security to all business units. So if I get a help desk ticket requesting assistance for Vanessa Martinez, Vanessa, I'll just pick on you. If I search on Vanessa Martinez's name, there are 16 Vanessa Martinez's out there. So names don't help us a lot. So please, 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 employee ID whenever possible. Thanks, Audrey Beck.
Thank you. You're welcome. Annette, if you don't have anyone working in the flooding area, but you have employees that work and live in that area and are affected, I'm sure the TRC is to recover costs. So your bureau should be providing information on how to code their time or how to deal with their time. That's not something that we can make. It is agency specific on how they're dealing with the employees that work and live in the affected area. All right, so seeing no additional questions, we will be moving forward. Oh, wait. Yes, Deborah, Central Payroll is under the HCM tab. We are the processors of all payroll throughout the state. So anything that is input into HCM, we have access to and are responsible for. So yes. All right, moving forward. Alex.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Guzman. I am the payroll trainer supervisor for Central Payroll for the DFA. Some of you may know me, have attended some of the classes I held earlier this year. Some of you have asked for one-on-one trainings, and I visited you in your agency or had some Teams meetings. I'm very glad to be a part of this meeting. Very excited about where we're moving forward with the training program and all the changes that we've had at Central Payroll. If you guys don't know, Central Payroll did go through a major reorganization or rehaul, and that fully went live with the new fiscal year. And so with that comes a few other changes, and that's kind of what we're going over today, the updates and information that are happening in Central Payroll, and that will be happening in the future here as well. The first part of this presentation here, we're going to go hand it off to Suzette, and then we'll go with Margaret and then jump back towards me. So Suzette.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Suzette Porter, and like Alex said, we are with Central Payroll, and today I'll be going over the importance of meeting the time approval deadlines in auditing payroll. So currently, the deadline for time approvals is noon on pay period and Friday. And so this is so that agencies can start auditing payroll to ensure that employees are paid timely and accurately. And so the reason that it is noon on Friday is because DFA starts running payroll processes, which then creates calculated checks based on time that has been entered, approved, processed by time admin, and then loaded. So on Friday, pay period and afternoons, this is when agencies can start reviewing checks to ensure that everything submitted to Central Payroll was processed, like TLVs, additional pays, hours adjustments, refunds, deductions, all those forms you submitted to DFA, you can start reviewing now on that review paychecks. But this also may be a required step for that pending time in order for agencies to start running some of the reports and queries. So every pay period, we send out a list of all those helpful and beneficial reports and queries. Some of the time needs to have gone through this Friday noon, what we call load and calc, in order for you to run this particular report or query, like the payroll register, or to see if deductions were not taken. So it is extremely important that agencies who are not on a time collection device where there is an upload that happens over the weekend. This is not pertaining to those ones, but everyone else where we're entering our own time, managers are approving that time, that it is getting done timely. Otherwise, HR really can't start auditing payroll to ensure that everything is going accordingly. Mondays are reserved for timesheet adjustments, and so we should not be using Mondays as a standard approval date. If you are using Mondays to approve time, that means you're unable to audit to ensure that your staff is or your agency's employees are going to be paid timely and accurately. Go ahead and go to the next screen. Here is the list of all those important queries. So some of them agencies are really used to using, like time not reported or time pending approval, things like that. But there are some other reports that you will find extremely beneficial, like the register to pre-audit. And so you will see the time shift from going in an estimated status, and that is time that's been entered, approved, gone through time admin, and it sits in estimated status till we do that DFA load and calc. So if you miss Friday's load and calc, that's fine. We also do that process on Monday mornings and Monday afternoons. So you can still run these payroll audits and reports throughout Monday to ensure that your folks are going to get paid correctly. And also, the agency is responsible for charging employees those deductions, right? So if you have an employee that didn't have enough earnings to pay for their deductions, agencies then need to do extra steps in order to charge that employee, may it be a one-time deduction request or having them pay through self-pay. But really, the agency needs to be finding those particular things while running payroll so that one, the employee pays timely so that their benefits aren't impacted. One of the reports, or two of the queries, sorry, I want to stress that agencies should be running the next few months due to the holidays is the holiday missing. It's the last query, as well as about 5 down on the queries, the holiday paid no time reported. So these reports are going to be extremely important to the agencies to ensure that employees are getting paid those holidays. So there are a few things that impact that holiday. One being the employee's schedule, so that employee need to have their schedules updated and shared so that they either accrue the holidays correctly or they get paid the holidays correctly. And another trigger for those holidays is the time that's actually reported on the timesheet. So if you have an employee that is going to be flexing time the day before or the day after a holiday, they are scheduled the day before or the day after the holiday, they have to have a 0 in there to trigger that holiday. Otherwise, the system can't determine that the employees met the eligibility criteria to trigger that holiday. So we have all these reports, all these queries, and people have learned how to use them. And we haven't really given any training on how to use these. So this is where I'm going to plug in Alex. So if you've never really used these reports or queries and you don't know how to use these reports and queries, please contact Alex and he can work with your agency and to show you how to utilize these reports to ensure you have a accurate and timely payroll, because employees need their paychecks timely. So, we got to do what we got to do to make sure these employees are paid timely and accurately. That's about it.
Okay, we do have an anonymous attendee that is saying that she does not have Query Viewer on HCM, but she does have it on Share Financials. So this would be a share security request. If for some reason your HR department determines that you should have access to HCM Query Viewer, they can request that access to the share team, but it is a controlled access. We do not give everybody or a large percentage of people access to the information that is in HCM because it is highly sensitive. Generally, these reports should be ran by your HR or your payroll staff and should not be ran by financial staff. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that this is an HR payroll responsibility and not a financial staff responsibility. But if you still feel the need, you can request your HR person or manager to request access to view only in HCM. All right, Margaret, I believe you're up next.
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. I want to touch a little bit about our third-party processes this morning, and more specifically on our position here at Central Payroll with posting the PR journals. As you know, the agencies, are required to run necessary queries to after payroll processes so that we can so that you all can reconcile your respective business units. Make sure that your HCM and your fin side, the liabilities and expenses are correct to the are posting to the correct funding source. What we're seeing here in Central Payroll is oftentimes when the PR journals are not posted, meaning there are budget status errors. We have to reach out to the agencies to request the correct funding source for that particular line item. So sometimes the issue that comes across is that a task profile, for example, hasn't been updated. And so a funding source for that particular employee no longer applies. So when it hits the financial side, either there's no budget there, and so we have to have a correct funding source in order for us to post that PR journal. We are seeing a lot of agencies that have recurring errors, and so we try and reach out to them to give them guidance. We have some queries that they can run to compare the HCM details to the finance side to see what employee is causing that particular error. We do try to emphasize the importance to get those corrections to us in a timely manner. We do have our responsibility to reconcile as a whole timely. So this I guess this time that we have is very small. So we try to make that as easy as possible. We try and give you guys the information as best we can. If you don't have access to the particular queries that we give you, please reach out to us so that we can help you. Alex is very helpful also in helping with any questions as far as the queries that we need or any of that stuff. We do send out the notifications, like I said before, to the staff regarding the corrections, especially the no budget errors. And we're just asking everybody to please respond timely so that we can get those PR journals posted as quickly as possible. Do you guys have any questions on the PR journals specifically so that we can address those at this time?
Before we go there, Margaret, I want to add to this. For those of you that were not affected this payroll, be glad. Payroll in the past has resolved journal posting issues by overriding budget. Payroll no longer has that ability. We have never had the authority to override budget. So in the past, when we were overriding budgets, we were doing so outside of our authority. And that has been removed. We no longer have the ability to override budgets, which means that in order to correct a payroll journal error moving forward, it is the accounting string that is going to be changed. We are no longer going to override the budget and post it to where HCM says they want it posted. So we are working through what that process is going to look like. We ran into that issue this payroll where we have journal entries that need to be corrected because of no budget. But since we are unable to override the budget, we are requesting accounting string updates. We will provide further guidance and training if necessary once we have determined exactly the impact that this is going to have and what is the most appropriate methodology to use. In the event that we have to change a fund, we will more than likely also have to impact on the liabilities. So that's the portion that we are still working through. But do expect there to be changes to the way that payroll journals have been corrected in the past, which means that Central Payroll will need to be provided with a name from each agency that is outside of your HR department, because generally your HR department does not have access to journals in Fin and does not have access to budget in Fin. So if you have an agency that has a specific budgeting department and a specific financial department, we will probably need contacts for both, because in order to correct these payroll journals, the payroll staff is going to more than likely use the default general fund, and it will be up to your financial staff and your budgeting staff to correct the budget posting and then journal back the entries to where you want them to be. So that will be coming. Hopefully it will be coming by next pay period once we work through this payroll process to see what the impact is going to be. And I'm still not seeing any questions, so well, let's go ahead.
I would just like to, Audrey, jump in real
Go
quick.
ahead.
Since these changes are going to be affecting the PR journals, the payroll journals, it's also going to affect the payroll allocation. So anytime a change has to be done from the PR journal, we have to wait for it to get posted, and then we have to do a reconciliation, because the allocation journals, when we run our process, is going to be based off of what is coming over from HCM. So my staff and I are going to have to do a reconciliation between what was posted and try to make those same changes on the allocation journal, so that way what posted on the PR journal and how the allocation is relieving the liability are the same. So I just wanted to mention that, so that way agencies understand the full scope of the impact that this is going to have. It's needed, but it's best if we can get those corrected in HCM first, so we can minimize these type of corrections when it comes over to Fin. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, it is going to be a requirement that these get corrected in HCM, or if it's a budget issue, it gets corrected in Fin before the next payroll runs. Because if we continually see the same errors, then we will be reaching out to your leadership to get some sort of resolution on why we're not seeing the corrections being made, and we are having to essentially manipulate our financials in order to get our journals to post. So this is something, it is a change of business operations, and it is being done as a result of some of the issues that we are seeing across the state, and making sure that we are in compliance with our authorities and what we have the abilities to do, versus the requirements to make sure that the financial information in the book of record is correct and accurately reflects our subledgers.
Hey, Audrey, if I can just chime in real quick before you guys move on. And thank you, Heather, for adding the cash piece. You know, I just think it's important for all of us in the audience to understand that anytime a payroll journal has to be changed, there becomes a disconnection between our book of record on the payroll side, which is HCM, and our book of record on the finance side, which is Fin. That shouldn't happen, right? These are our legally adopted ERP systems. They should always reconcile to each other. So a lot of the things Audrey's going over and Heather are going over are kind of the band-aids. This is how they have to address fixing these problems, because at that point it's too late, and they have to figure out how to work with you all to get this corrected so folks can get paid and the PR journals can get posted. We really need this fixed on the front end in HCM, and it needs to be fixed before payroll runs so there aren't these errors, because that's a frustrating thing to me as a state controller. Why our two systems don't reconcile, and it's almost always because something had to be changed on that payroll journal, because a combo code or a task profile wasn't updated correctly, or the budgets weren't fixed, or the project budgets weren't updated when the federal fiscal year changes, like all of those things. And this is where HR, payroll, and finance teams at the agency level have to work together, to do that. So please, it is a new process. It's a process that I wish we wouldn't have to do. It's a process that I wish Audrey and Heather and them wouldn't have to work on, because it takes a lot of time and it causes a disconnect between the two sides of our financial systems. So the more you can do on the front end in HCM to get it corrected when you hire folks, or when they change, or when things change before payroll runs, it's the preferred method of correction is fix it there, so we don't have to fix the payroll journals if possible, please. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
And I'm still not seeing any questions, so we can move on. All right, so direct deposit security and accuracy. We are still seeing fraud attempts, and unfortunately, at this time of year, fraud issues really become a greater threat. For some reason, the fraudsters like this time of year. A lot of companies or agencies provide bonuses to employees, and so they think that now's a great time of year to really scoop up some extra cash. And the number one way that they do that is through changing direct deposit information on an employee to go to a false bank account. So it is really, really important that we adhere to the security and verify the accuracy whenever we are setting up or changing a direct deposit set up in HCM. We should always, whenever we get the documentation, we should ensure that we have the proper documentation. So that means that the correct form must be filled out, but there are only two types of backup that we accept. We will accept a statement, a bank statement from the employee with their financial information redacted, but they must be listed as the owner of that account. If it is a checking account, we will accept a voided check. Now, that is actually a printed check, not one that is generated electronically or generated by the bank. So they have to actually have checks printed and perforated, so they're tearing off the check and voiding the check. We will not accept electronic information on that check, because a lot of your prepaid cards will send your employees a printout of a check saying, use this check to set up your direct deposit. The only problem is that fraudsters also have access to that exact information. And so if they go in and they set up a fraudulent account and they fill out the form and they attach that electronic voided check, then they have essentially accessed the employee's information if we do not go through our third verification step, which is to actually speak to the employee, talk to them or face-to-face to validate that this is their request. Yes, they sent in the change. Yes, they are requesting this change. Yes, this is the change that they want to make. That verbal or face-to-face verification is essential. We should not be making any changes to direct deposit via email. If an employee sends you a direct deposit change through their email, we need to get on the phone and we need to call them. And their phone number should be listed in HCM, which is where we should be getting their contact information from. We should not be reaching out back to the email and saying, please call me, or can you give me a number that I can contact you. We need to take it upon ourselves to ensure that we are reaching out from a secured information site to the employee directly, because these larger agencies that have 3,000 and 4,000 employees, the HR department does not know these employees on a personal level. They would not know them if they spoke to them on the phone, that the person they are actually speaking to is the employee. So we really need to go through that extra step and make sure that we are locating the information from HCM and reaching out to the employee that way. If we have a direct business line, we can contact them through that, but I would recommend using their personal information in HCM to verify any changes to direct deposit. We also need to ensure when we are keying this information into HCM, we have a second set of eyes that are looking at this information before we submit it. This is another area in HCM where the information is masked. And so after you have submitted it, it's very difficult for some people to be able to see the full banking information. So we need to verify before we push that enter button and save it into share that the information we have keyed matches the information that the employee has given us. In the event that an agency does have a fraud perpetrated because of direct deposit, we make it very difficult. We have to notify the state, the Secretary of State, of the fraud. We have to have the police involved for identity theft. We will remove access to direct deposit setup for the employee that input the incorrect information. And we will make the agency provide us with the information on how they're going to ensure that this, what policies and procedures they're putting in place to ensure that this does not happen again. So we are very serious about direct deposit information being put into HCM that is accurate in order to ensure that our employees are receiving their pay, they receive their pay timely, and that we are the gatekeepers to prevent that information from being stolen and the agencies being held responsible for any losses that would occur due to that incorrect information. All right, so I am seeing some questions, and it says, do we need to put our own agency name or is it okay to have DFA? It's always your own agency. I don't know. I'm sorry, Jerry. I'm really not sure I'm understanding the question. The agencies are responsible for inputting the direct deposit information. So maybe you need to clarify what the question is. I apologize. So Catherine is saying we just received save time with direct deposit form with a copy of the voided check provided by the bank. Is this acceptable? I'm again, if this is something that you received via email or via fax machine, I would reach out to the employee personally to verify that this is the request. You know, this sounds to me like it may be a phishing request or somebody trying to get information from you that they do not have. This is not a new form, I do not believe. It may have been updated by the top of the form. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think the only the form that's on the website, I guess it hasn't been updated, but the only difference between that form and this one is that our new DFA logo. That's the only thing that's been updated on the form itself. So you can still utilize the form. I'll resend this out to our team to update it on our website. But that's the only difference between the existing form on our website and this one here that's on the slide is the logo itself.
Okay. Catherine, yes, if it was provided by the employee during orientation and the employee verifies it, then yes, you can accept it. Yes, you can accept a letter from the bank as long as there is some way that you can verify. And here's the problem with the letter from the bank is that it's very, very easy to generate a letter from the bank that's not really coming from the bank. So if this is coming directly from the employee and the employee is verifying that this is their banking information, I would say the letter from the bank would suffice because that is verifying the routing and account information. Our concern is more in ensuring that the employee is requesting, and this is the information that the employee is requesting, that it is accurate. If the major question is when you receive it through an email or through a fax and not from the employee personally. If an employee brings you this information to you in person, then normally we can assume that that is the information the employee wants us to accept. The documentation is to validate the financial institution information. So that's where the distinction is. If you're getting financial institution information not from the employee personally, but through an electronic means, that is the information we need to be wary of, and we need to be reaching out to the employee. All right, I'm just kind of scanning here to ensure we don't have any other questions. If they only have a card that shows their routing, checking, and savings number, I would recommend they get something from their bank. Again, we really have to look at how easy is it for this information to be fraudulent. And a lot of times, if it's a card with the information written on it, it could easily be misinterpreted or misread or miswritten. So we really need to have something where it is hard copy documented that isn't handwritten. There really is no requirement when an employee gets a promotion to, if the promotion is within the agency, to redocument their direct deposit information. If that is your agency's requirement, then I really can't say whether or not this needs to stay intact. It's a good check, it's a good verification, but I really don't have the authority to respond to that question. No, there is a cap. DFA does have a cap on who we allow to have direct deposit entry access, and that cap is based on the FTE of each agency. So we monitor that. There is very specific requirements for an employee to get direct deposit entry access, and we do monitor it and make sure that there is a limited number of personnel within each agency that has access to this, and we will not provide additional authorization above the caps. All right, I think that's all of them. Next slide, please. And this is touching on what Audrey Liddy and the shared team spoke about with the new FLSA caps that will be changing in January. The federal government did change the thresholds earlier in July, and those changes have already been addressed, but there is another change that will be happening January 1st, where those thresholds will increase once again. Audrey Liddy went over all of the thresholds and the impacts, so I'm not really going to go into that, but there is an impact if we are having an employee that moves between a exempt and a non-exempt position, especially if those employees have any comp time balances. When they move into this new classification, they will start accruing OT leave balances. And my understanding is that you cannot access both the comp time and the OT buckets at the same time. So we will need to ensure anybody that has a comp time accrual has utilized or used all of that time prior to January 1st. That way, when they move into the OT, it's not going to impact on their ability to utilize time that they have already accrued as additional time worked. Please identify these employees early. These changes will need to be made prior to the first, that pay period that includes January the 1st. So while it's effective January the 1st on the federal level, because January the 1st is in the middle of a pay period, it will actually need to have a December, I think it's 26th or 27th effective date in order to ensure that we are encompassing all of the time after January 1st, according to the federal rules. So please make sure that you start evaluating impacted employees now in order to make the appropriate changes in the system before the payroll that includes January the 1st. And please look at their any leave balances that they may have in their comp time buckets and let them know that, you know, they will need to use that time prior to those changes, or they may no longer have access or the ability to use that time. All right. And I'm going to now turn this over to Alex.
All right, awesome. So this is a new procedure. We have a payroll reconciliation that we are finalizing now, a new process that I think is going to be very helpful for all agencies. This new reconciliation does not replace or change any other form of reconciliation that you currently do or need to be doing. This will help ensure that with this reconciliation, it'll help ensure that all the employees' deductions or amounts are correct, and to find any missing deductions and minimizing corrections or errors in your journals. So again, a very helpful tool. The basis of this reconciliation is a query that you see posted there, NMS_PY_deductions_by_PPE. This is if you've never ran this query, definitely recommend running it, and you can look at it to get familiar with the information that we have on there. What this will specifically reconcile is the insurance deductions. So we'll verify the percentage amounts for dental, vision, and medical. We're also going to be verifying the FICA deductions, your OASDI and FedMed calculations versus the actual withheld amounts, your retirement deductions. So we're going to verify the amounts of the percentages that should be deducted, and the retiree healthcare deductions. Again, the withheld versus the calculated amounts. The query, this is what the query looks like. Again, if you've never seen it, you can run this in two different methods, one under showing the employee deductions and the other showing the employer or the state side of the deductions, and gives you a breakdown per pay period of all their deductions that they have on their paycheck. You can also view these deductions, of course, under review paycheck to verify those amounts on the actual paycheck itself. Once we have this information, we'll be building out that workbook and running through the process itself. Again, this is something that we're finalizing now. It's something me and Audrey Beck are working on. And once we have this out or completed, I will create a class, kind of like I had earlier this year, where you're able to sign up as needed. And so we can run through this entire process. It can be a little daunting at first, especially if you're not familiar with Excel or an expert. But I'll make sure that we make it as easy to run and understand. And of course, there'll be a written process to go along with the class as well. But it's something that I do recommend having, a few people from every agency attend so that they understand this new process. This is the actual query itself. So you have the employee and the employer side. And then the final process here, this is an example of what the workbook should look like. You'll see here at the bottom where it shows the insurance recon, the FICA recon, the retirement recon, and the RHC recon. And again, we're going to be matching these. And this is something you should be running along with any of your reconciliations every pay period. So usually the week after pay date or the week of pay date is when you want to start running this reconciliation. Usually on Wednesday after everything's posted and ran. But again, very excited about this new process. Overall, that's one of the major trainings that I've had requested is payroll reconciliation. Currently, the one that I've been teaching is a more basic one where it reconciles your HCM information to your financial information. And these are your cash and liability accounts that we run through in this reconciliation process. Again, this is a much deeper dive and something that your HR team can run to look at those deductions for your employees. Any questions on this so far? Anything that you want to add to this, Audrey?
Yes. The reason that we are going to this is because the state is getting a lot of findings for not reconciling payroll. And when we say we need to reconcile payroll, we're not just meaning we need to reconcile what's posted in HCM versus what is in Fin. That is an essential part of the reconciliation and has to be done, but that's usually done by your financial staff. Your financial staff does not have access to the HCM information. And the HCM information is what generates all of the liabilities for the state. So we end up doing a lot of corrections over sometimes long periods of time. And I'm not talking months, I'm talking years, where we're having to go back and now try to recuperate para deductions for 2 years or collect FICA that we didn't realize should have been turned on and was turned off, or that their insurances were not calculating at the right percentage rates. So this recon is being used to help catch some of those issues as soon as they start, so that we are being more proactive in resolving these issues instead of being reactive. And a lot of the agencies out there know when an employee goes to retire, para will reconcile an employee's payroll going back to the beginning of their working with the state of New Mexico. And sometimes they will come back and they will say, well, why didn't you withhold at this rate? Or why did you make these adjustments? What was going on? And by us not reconciling down to the employee level, we're creating those issues and are generating a lot of work for us where it can be difficult. If you're having to figure out why something happened at an agency 5 years ago when you started at the agency a month and a half ago, it can be very daunting. So by doing this, we're really trying to become very proactive in how we look at payroll and the role that we have in ensuring that the employee's payroll is correct and is accurately reflecting the obligations of the state towards our employee benefits. And we do have a couple of questions. let's go just a little bit longer and then we will have a break.
I think we can break once we switch over from this one over to our
To our RT solutions.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead to the next one. All right. So this is something that we have just been informed of. And I apologize that I was not aware. I'll be quite honest. I was not aware that this was out there, but the Social Security Administration has reached out to the state to inform the state that this is something that we should be in compliance with. So if you are an agency that has employees who are FICA exempt, meaning that they are not paying the Social Security portion of their FICA, they're only paying the Medicare portion. Generally, these are our police officers, our firefighters, our correction officers. There are a few other agencies, but it is a result of a 529 agreement with the Social Security Administration that these roles will be exempt from Social Security contributions. If you have an employee in one of these positions, we are required, if that employee was hired after January 5th, to have a form on file that has been completed by the employee informing them. Go ahead to the next page, please. I want them to see the form. This form has to be completed by the employee and submitted to PARA or ERB, whoever their pension is through, notifying them that they are subject to the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset provision of the Social Security Act. And this is something that I have never seen the state complete. I have never had any questions about it. I do not believe we are utilizing this form, and we should be. So payroll will be sending out this form as well as instructions and list of employees to agencies that are impacted, and they will need to ensure that each employee on the list has completed this form, and then this form is submitted to either PARA or ERB, whichever retirement plan they are under. Okay, let's move ahead. I'd like to remind everyone that because we are going into the holidays, that we will be moving up the deadlines for payroll. So the Veterans Day holiday is on Monday, November 11th, and we will be moving up those deadlines. Also for the Thanksgiving weekend, we will definitely be moving up those deadlines, and for Christmas Day as well. Unfortunately, all of the holidays that we are seeing over the next couple of months will be impacting the processing of payroll and our ability to meet the required deadlines for banking in order to ensure our employees are paid on the Friday of the pay period after the pay period. So in order to do that, we will be moving up those holidays. We will be sending out reminders, and hopefully everybody will adhere to those so that we can have successful payrolls and the central payroll staff can enjoy the holidays along with the rest of the state employees. All right, moving on.
Okay, so
you have it.
Yeah, just some resources regarding central payroll. Of course, you have me. My job depends on you guys needing help. So the more you come to me, the more requests for training you have, the better. You can reach me via phone number. I have my phone number there at 505-469-2910. You can also send a email directly to me, and we also have an email inbox created for the training group We are planning on hiring another trainer. So we do have that position available, and we will be posting it here soon. But we do have another trainer that we will have on board. And this email address that you see, that cpbtrainers@dfa.nm.gov, was created so that this goes to the entire training team, as well as Audrey has access to it. So we all see any requests there as well. Then we have our central payroll webpage, and this is under the DFA website, but our specific page is listed there at the Financial Control and then Central Payroll Bureau. This is where you can find all the forms. That direct deposit form that you guys asked about earlier is there, as well as some procedures and processes there as well. And of course, if you have any questions on anything there, feel free to reach out to me again via email or Teams or phone there as well. We also have a YouTube channel that we plan on utilizing a lot more, especially once we get more people in our training team and we're able to create more content. But we have a few videos. There is one actually on the direct deposit process up there, as well as the new naming convention. I still have a few agencies reaching out asking about that new naming convention. This naming convention is used whenever any form, whether it's TLV or additional pay request or any type of form that's sent to that central payroll inbox, needs to utilize that new naming convention. This is going to be very important coming into this new process that we're running, or this new program that we're about to launch, hopefully in the new year, new calendar year. This is called our form submission system, is what we're going to officially call it. This is kind of like a ticketing system. Think of it kind of how you submit a ticket for the share team or for Do It. But this is, instead of, utilizing Outlook and emails and constant sending, going back and forth and having to track those emails, we're going to have this program built that'll make it a lot easier to submit these forms, and you're able to track a lot more of what you submitted, where it's at in the process. And for those of you that are going to stay along in the next hour, we're going to have Brianna from Real Time Solutions. She's part of the team that's creating this program, going over a presentation on this new program. But that naming convention is going to be very essential for this new form submission system, so that it's able to send that to the proper channels, when you submit those new forms. But again, I definitely recommend checking out our YouTube channel and seeing some of the videos. We have Payroll 101 on there as well, and good video that gives you some basic information on the payroll processes. But that's all I have on our end. I do see one question. Yes, the direct deposit on our website, the form is the same one that was on the presentation. The only difference is the updated DFA logo. So you can utilize the one that's there for now. I'll make sure that we I'll send in that new form so that it's updated on the website as well. But other than that, there's no difference whatsoever other than just the DFA logo.